everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kate Hamilton Health Podcast. So in today's episode, I chat with Aisling Fox. Aisling is a nutritional therapist, herbalist, and founder of AOK Nutrition. A lot of you will probably have heard of her and may be following her already. She is absolutely fantastic. Her approach is extremely refreshing, where she combines traditional medicine with science-based practices. She has a clinic in Dublin. She works with clients in person and online. And we just had the most amazing conversation around the whole topic of female health. We talk about hormones, we talk about fertility, we talk about the effects of extreme dieting. We talk a lot around kind of the vital healthy habits and healthy lifestyle that's necessary to have healthy hormones and a healthy body. We talk about stress and how much of a part that plays in hormone imbalance, which then leads to a lot of other symptoms. We talk about herbalism and traditional practices a bit as well. And I found this just such an interesting conversation. And I think my biggest takeaway from it all is if you are experiencing any type of symptoms, whether it is irregular periods, really heavy periods, really light periods, even nothing to do with periods, if you're experiencing no periods, if you're having fertility issues, if you're not ovulating, if you're like, whatever it is that's going on with your body, there's always a reason for it. And what Aisling does is gets to the bottom of what's going on, where with a doctor, you might perhaps be told it's not PCOS, it's not endometriosis, it's not whatever. And then that's it. And then you're just supposed to be like, okay, that's grand. That's normal. I'm a woman. I just need to deal with it. When that's not the case, when there's always a way to get to the bottom of it. And that's what she does in her clinics and with her practice. And this conversation, I just think, is so empowering because she digs deep in really important issues, but in a way that's really actionable for us. And, so that we can take control of our health, we can take control of our hormones, and that this idea of balancing hormones, which gets a bad rep these days, is a real thing. We can manage our hormones through living a healthy, balanced lifestyle. There are things that can be a bit out of our control, like fertility, but what Aisling does is provides a path to take that feels empowering, that is one step at a time. And I'm just so excited to share this episode with you. Aisling, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here today.
I'm so excited to chat to you today. For anyone who hasn't heard of you, and I'm sure there's lots of people listening who do follow you and know your work, would you mind sharing a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, of course. So online, I'm known as AOK Nutrition. The amount of people at gas when I'm out, people like AOK, like people just shout AOK at me, which is nice to be known like that. So my business background, I'm in clinic now around 11 years. I set up my practice at AOK Nutrition around 11 years ago. I started off as a nutritional therapist. So all about getting to the root of the problem, using like nutrition as a form of medicine, basically, or not even medicine, a tool for healing, essentially. And after a couple of years in my clinic, I kind of fell into the world of like female health and hormones, which is very much what I would do now in my clinic. Now I have an amazing team who work for me. So I have like a gut health clinic as well. And I have absolutely unbelievable practitioners who are obsessed with gut health as much as I'm obsessed with like female health and fertility. We have a great team now working with us, but I suppose my area of passion is definitely female health and hormones. I'm very like you, Kate, like I'm so passionate about educating people. I feel like it's an area that our generation just were literally like, if you have sex, you will be pregnant. And there was no other conversation around it. So in my clinic, we work a lot with things like irregular cycles and PCOS, fertility, painful periods, heavy periods, endometriosis. I'm also a herbalist as well. So I went back in 2020 and I trained as a herbalist, which basically we to go back and study traditional Chinese medicine, which makes no sense in terms of science, really. Like my brain loves biology. I love looking at bloods. I love looking at like how the body's working. And then traditional Chinese medicine makes like it just looks at things from a completely different perspective. And I love incorporating like natural medicine, like Chinese medicine with science. And that's kind of how we run our clinic now. My mum is actually a herbalist as well. So like my first background is we were brought up with herbal medicine. Now my mom started as a nurse first. She was a nurse for nearly 20 years before she jumped ship and became a herbalist and a naturopath. So it's interesting that my upbringing, we're very, very respectful of medicine and conventional medicine. And there's a place for both. And then we're also very much into taking echinacea when you're sick and vitamin C and everything like that as well. So it's a nice balance of both. And yeah, that's basically the clinic in a nutshell. So we are based in Portmarnock in Dublin, and we do, like, I see clients from all over the world now. So it's amazing. Obviously, the same as you, like access to clients everywhere. So yeah, it's great. I love it.
That's amazing. So do you work with people in person as well as online, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a clinic based in Dublin and then online consultations as well. So it's lovely having both. Like, I think that personal connection we kind of lost a little bit during COVID, but it's so nice when people come in and you're actually having the chats with people and, form a different connection in person. I think is really nice as well.
Yeah, I think we forget about how important that connection really is. I'd love to just dive into the topic of hormones. It's interesting, when you see a lot of content come up and a lot of, health, hormone content, and you see a lot of people putting up things online being like, if someone is telling you to balance your hormones, they're a fraud or they're this, that, that there's a lot of hate on people talking about balancing hormones and, different things that you can do lifestyle wise to look after your hormones, I suppose. So I just love to dig into this topic altogether. And, because I think there's so many PTs out there that just think that women are just the same as men. And it really,
Mm.
really isn't the case. I know that, you know that. And I just think a lot of people are confused by this conflicting information. People are like, it's just calories in versus calories out. It's just do this, do that, but we are so much more complex with everything that's going on inside us. So I don't even know where to start with this. Maybe you do. If I say hormones, let's dig in. Where do we start?
Or elevator pitch. Do you know what it is? That's all thing. Like, women, we are not small men. Like, we have a menstrual cycle. So, and even as as women, if you're not on birth control, our cycle, if it's regular, is kind of almost like a 4-week cycle. Like, you feel different in each kind of phase of like those kind of 4 weeks. When you get your period, you might feel a bit tired. Once you're kind of day, 4 or 5, energy levels kick in. You're coming up to ovulation. You feel amazing around maybe the week of ovulation. Then the second week, then after ovulation, you're into the luteal phase. So kind of afterwards, people might start feeling a bit PMSy, you're tired. And then often that week before your period, you could be absolutely wrecked. So I think it's important, even from, say, like a fat loss perspective. Yes, it is calories in versus calories out. Like, we can't argue with that. There's no, you know what I mean? That at the end of it, that is what we're aiming for. But let's look at everything else that surrounds that. So if you're a female and you get really severe PMS and up to your period, like, I have clients who suffer things like PMDD, which is called premenstrual dysphoric disorder. They're literally like a different person for the 2 weeks before they get their period. You try telling them, like, go to the gym, go for that early morning walk, like, don't be eating all those carbs. Like, certain people just can't do that. Like, willpower, people talk about that a lot. And sometimes people just can't do that when hormones have such a massive part to play. Like, that hormone that kicks in our luteal phase called progesterone, it's so important for making us feel calm, for making us feel happy, for helping with pain in the body. So if you're coming up to your luteal phase and you're lacking in progesterone and all of a sudden all of your symptoms get worse, it's really hard for people to kind of like keep up their kind of their or hit their goals or keep up kind of their healthier routines or get up in the morning, and even their sleep might be impacted. So I feel like if we're talking about personal trainers, for example, like, that is a difference, that we're not small men because we have our menstrual cycle. And I think it's important to take into consideration, if you're working with someone, that it can impact your appetite and your goals and your sleep and everything else that goes along with it.
Yeah. It's funny, as a female who, for a lot of my life of having a period, let's say, I've been quite steady. I've been quite stable. I've been lucky enough that I haven't suffered too badly with ups and downs when it comes to hormones. The 2 times in my life where I've really felt it is when I was pregnant with my 3rd child. Like, I remember, like, just, I didn't, whatever was going on with my hormones, and like, I was so cranky. Like, I just couldn't, like, for like a good solid the whole 9 months basically. And I was just, and I'd just be so cranky and I'd just be so irrational, and I could hear myself and I'm like, just Kate, stop, like, stop. But I couldn't. And I was like, I knew it was hormones and like, my mom was very kind of not understanding of hormones growing up. Like, it was really like, stop using it as an excuse. You know what I mean? That was her mindset, which I know is really old school. Like, that was one time where I really, like, it made me understand that complete lack of control when hormones really can take over. And
Yeah.
then the second time is kind of now, like, it's as in, I'm 39, so I'll be 40 next year. I have had my 3 kids. I'm not on a pill. I don't have a coil in place. So, like, my cycle is natural and it's very, very regular. And I know exactly where I'm at each stage of my cycle. But what I've noticed is that week running up to my period, or kind of the week or the 2 weeks running up to my period, is actually usually not the week right running up to it. It's kind of the one before that, where I, like, that can get really low, like, just kind of low, but also a little bit just irrational. Just can't deal with, like, the bullshit, like, and like, particularly, like, with my husband or with the kids or whatever. And that's only starting to change now. So it's obviously, as I'm getting a bit older, my hormones are shifting. And I like that, the fact that I know that, because I've kind of been tracking it and I can see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It baffles me, and this is why I'm so passionate about like education. Like, imagine we understood our menstrual cycle from such a young age. Like, hormonal
Yeah.
issues are the same whether you are 11, you just got your first period, or whether you're 49, or sorry, 39, and you're about to go into perimenopause and go into menopause. Like, that hormone that we love so much, that hormone progesterone, is key for everything. So when you ovulate, what's happening there is probably now coming into perimenopause. First of all, your estrogen levels can fluctuate. So it's the drop of estrogen kind of makes you feel like, oh God, you're a bit flat. And then progesterone's not picking up the slack. Progesterone's not kicking in. So if we have enough progesterone for those second 2 weeks of our cycle, you feel okay. Like I said, progesterone helps make our happy hormones. It's a natural painkiller. So if you're getting sore boobs for 2 weeks beforehand, that's lack of progesterone. Some people get breakouts before their period for literally the 2 weeks before. That's lack of progesterone. And earlier on, you were talking about the whole argument of hormonal imbalance. And honestly, I just feel it's just clickbait. It's honestly just, I think, trying to just poke the bear for people who are talking about it. Of course, hormones can be balanced. We see it all the time in a blood test. Like, testosterone levels, low testosterone, less than 1.8, high testosterone, above that. I'm like, what do you mean when they're talking about hormones can't be in balance? I'm like, of course they can. I can understand sometimes people talking about, so estrogen gets a lot of publicity, and like estrogen dominance and estrogen being too high and things like this. And estrogen can be a problem, but sometimes what can happen is estrogen is just too high because progesterone is too low, right? So sometimes
Yeah.
it's not always about trying to bring down estrogen levels and estrogen is the culprit. Progesterone has to be able to kind of pick up the slack and balance it out. So not everyone I see, we don't focus on reducing estrogen in every single person. A lot of people I see, we actually have to manage stress and support progesterone, because at the end of the day, stress is one of the biggest things that's going to reduce progesterone. So for you now, like a lot of women that I would see kind of in your position, like they've been grand for a lot of their life, and like, how come this is happening now? But you're probably busier potentially, like you've 3 kids, you're running a business, than you have been. Like, sometimes it's actually lifestyle factors that you need to take into consideration as well. So people think like, God, all of a sudden, my hormones completely changed after I had kids. And I'm like, your life before you had kids versus when you have kids is so different. And sometimes it's just the stress levels, or even good stress. See, I say to clients, are you stressed? And they say no. And I go, are you busy? And they're like, oh, geez, I'm up the walls. And I'm like, it's the same hormone. Cortisol is the same, whether you're literally happy but busy or being chased by a tiger. It's the same hormone,
Yeah, no, I'm kind of laughing as you say that, because it's interesting. Like, when I work, a lot of clients that I work with are going through perimenopause, or even kind of coming out the other side of menopause. And I'll always be like, you can lose body fat, you can get fit, you can get strong. We're not using menopause as an excuse. Obviously, we have to. And then here's me, like, I'm 39 and I've noticed my hormones are changing. It's like, yes, maybe it is actually my stress levels. So that would lead me to my next question. So when it comes to balancing our hormones, obviously, I presume we will, if we're feeling really off balance and think something's not right, we're going to go to our doctor. But if we just want to look at what to do lifestyle wise, dealing with our stress would be number one.
100%. Stress is, I cannot stress enough how much that's going to impact you. Like, you could be on, I see clients, for example, people I'm really calling magnesium. Magnesium is quite well known now for stress and sleep and things like that. People are on magnesium and they're having 3 coffees a day. And I'm like, do you understand they're the opposite to each other? Like, caffeine increases cortisol, magnesium brings it down. So I think the first step is actually realizing that, I would say to clients, control what you can control. So like, you might be like, no, I'm not stressed in work, but you get up in the morning after sleeping for 6 hours, and you do a spin class before work, and then you come in and you're not hungry, so you just have a coffee for breakfast. And then the first meal a day you have is 12 o'clock after having a second coffee. And it's just, I don't know, something, a bowl of vegetable soup, let's say, or like something very low protein, which makes your blood sugars go up and down. You have another cup of tea or another coffee in the afternoon. Like, you're not eating enough during the day. Like, those are very just, I'm sure you see it all the time with clients, typical things people do, and they don't realize how much stress that's put on their body. Or, you're in a meeting and you skip your lunch and you just for coffee instead. Like, I'm using caffeine a lot as an example, because I feel like a lot of women who are busy and working, we rely on caffeine a lot for energy and for kind of keeping us going, and kind of that mindset of like, I'll go for a coffee and a walk. And it's a real cultural thing at the minute. Women don't realize how much it's actually impacting us. Men are completely different. This is the thing. Men don't have progesterone the same way we do. So they're not depleting progesterone the same way. So step one is definitely looking at lifestyle factors, the basics 101. Sleep. Are you sleeping properly? Are you waking up during the night? How much are you eating during the day? If you're getting hangry at every single meal, if you feel like your blood sugars are dropping 3 or 4 times a day, aka if you're starving the time you're going to eat your lunch, or if you're coming in from work and eating a biscuit making your dinner, I would say like you're gone too far there. Like your blood sugars have crashed, cortisol has been triggered. So trying to eat before that happens. And as I'm sure you're always drilling into your clients, like protein is just the most important nutrient here for blood sugar balancing, because it's going to keep you full. It's going to keep you going a lot longer. And like a typical diet, I would see sometimes people having like porridge and berries for breakfast. And I mentioned there like vegetable soup. Vegetable soup is a bowl of vegetables and a glass of water, right? That's not a meal, right? Yeah. Same porridge and berries. People think they're doing great. And I would say, think of porridge and berries like eating carrots and potatoes for dinner. So my analogy for my own clients is think of Irish mammy dinners. And Irish mammy dinners is all about the protein. If you rang your other half being like, can you bring home something home for dinner? And he rocks up with a bag of potatoes, you're going to be like, why didn't you get anything for dinner? Where's the dinner? Why did you bring potatoes home? Right. And yet you might have had toast for breakfast, not thinking that that's a problem. And toast for breakfast is the same as eating potatoes for dinner with nothing else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So a lot of people don't realize that. And our generation, if we're, anyone kind of like the 90s babies, right? We were brought up watching TV ads for cereals for breakfast and things like that. Remember like the Frosties ads, the cornflakes ads. So we think that eating cereal for breakfast is a normal breakfast. You would never have corn on the cob for dinner and nothing else. And a bone of cornflakes is the same thing. Corn on the cob and a glass of milk, that's not a dinner, right? It's not even a lunch. And yet people have that for breakfast. So I think it's retraining people's brain, but like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So when I'm with my clients, I'm like, plan your meals by Irish Mammy's Plan Dinners. So it's your protein source is the main part of your meal. So if you're having porridge and berries for breakfast, your protein source is, we're going to add Greek yogurt, are we going to add protein powder or collagen powder, are we going to add nuts and seeds, are we going to whisk in an egg? Where's the protein coming from? And if you have none of those things in the house, you need to come up with a different breakfast because no protein there. And by doing that first, as again, I think that is one of the most important things everyone can do. Start off with balancing your blood sugars and then see what your energy levels are like, then see what your sugar cravings are like. And that can really
and this excuse of like, I don't have time for breakfast or I can't eat breakfast. I'm like, there's so many amazing recipes out there now of doing like overnight oats, overnight Weetabix recipes, like loads of different things, even preparing an omelette or whatever it is that you want to have for breakfast. You can do it the night before if you don't have time in the morning and bring it with you. It's so easy to do.
Yeah.
What I tend to say to people who can't eat breakfast is like, you don't need to eat it immediately after you get up if you really can't. Give yourself a minute. Like, but
100%. That's why I say to clients, bring it with you. Like, let's talk about self-care for a moment. If you can't manage 10 minutes of a day to eat breakfast, there's something seriously wrong in your life.
Yeah. Then you need to be focusing on your stress levels. You need, because that's going to be the main focus of everything, isn't it?
Definitely. Like, bring that, like, say, throw like literally oats and yogurt, a few berries, whatever with you. Bring it, eat 2 hours sitting there and work. Like, if you can't manage that, like even 30 seconds, a minute and a half routine in the morning, like you're really like, it's not even me saying, you have to get up in the morning and dry brush and do your sauna and do your meditation. Like, that is like a luxury, right? In the mornings. Eating breakfast is not a luxury. That's a necessity. And if people can't even do that for themselves, that's what I mean. We have a problem here. Like, people need to actually take a step back and be like, what's my goal here? Like, what, you know what I mean? And these people are often people that often hit a wall then, because you can't run like that forever.
And these tend to be people as well who want to look after everyone else. It's like they're running around after their kids, and I know there's two sides to that. Like, there's two kind of stages to that I see a lot. Like, probably the stage that you're at, the baby stage, where it's really full on and you have to watch them every second, and it can be hard, and like, oh my god, I haven't eaten, like, what you're that, and if you're balancing full-time job with that's really hard. And then like the stage where I'm at, where it's like teenagers, older kids, and you're constantly taxi, you're going this football training. For me, breakfast doesn't tend to be a problem anymore. It's trying to find time to cook dinner and actually eat it can sometimes be hard midweek in the evenings. And I know a lot of my clients can struggle with that. Like, this is where we focus on with my coaching as well. It's like, this space has to be created. You can't look after your kids. You can't look after your parents or whoever else you are that you have going on in your life if you're so depleted that you're running yourself into the ground. Because then what happens if you stop, like, if you end up in hospital or you end up really sick or whatever, everything's going to fall apart. You need to be able to look after you, to be able to look after others. And I think by setting the example of taking the time to prepare a proper breakfast and to have those set meal times is showing your kids, this is how we do it. Like, if we look back, like you're saying, back to the Irish mammy, the meat and spuds and veg kind of dinners or whatever, like, your children are going to become what they see. And it's not what you tell them, it's what you do. And I think it's so important what you're saying here.
Yeah. And the whole, like, I love the analogy, you can't pour from an empty cup. And like, as mums, like the amount of even clients I have who get in the call and we're talking about their kids for the first 15 minutes. And then we're like, here, we need to talk about you. Like, we're programmed to
Yeah.
look after and to nourish and for our children first and probably the people around us first. So we think it's like that we were talking about. Even for me, like when I was first postpartum, if I didn't have breakfast, I'd be then on a walk and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm starving, and having a coffee and a chocolate cake, like, which is fine, but not 11 o'clock in the morning, like, because I was like about to pass out with the buggy. Do you know what I mean? So I think I learned quickly that now I have to eat breakfast so I can be the best mom that day. Like, and I think that's what people have to understand, that it's actually one of the most selfless things that you can do. Like, and it shouldn't be this huge thing. Like, eating food is the basics of what our body needs, do you know? And like we're talking about there, the analogy, it can't pour from an empty cup. So nourish
Yeah.
yourself first. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, like whack it in a Tupperware. Like, we're not talking about meal prep and some fancy meals. Just bring something with you with a bit of protein that you can eat at your desk if that's what you have to do, you know?
Yeah. Just a little bit off topic, just because like I 100% agree with you with this, eating regularly, keeping protein high, keeping your blood sugar levels stable. And I've interviewed a few people recently around the topic of intermittent fasting. And
Mm.
I'd love to know your take on it because, the people that are into intermittent fasting can quite often have, really, really strong advice on how this really benefits your health and are promoting a healthy, balanced lifestyle as well alongside this. And, I've been talking to people who do kind of, 24, 48 hour fasts, or people who are intermittent fasting for a certain part of the day. Like, people ask me my opinions on intermittent fasting. And my advice is always like, if you want to stop eating after dinner, and you don't want to eat again till your breakfast and have your breakfast at 10, 11 a.m., that's fine. That's intermittent
Mm.
fasting, but don't be using it as an excuse to skip breakfast.
Yeah. So it's interesting like that. I think there's such a gray area with intermittent fasting because there is a lot of research showing like fasting can help promote immune function, and like fasting is used a lot with kind of like illnesses. Now, I would never do that. Like, I think some therapists would go into fasting with things like that, and we can see that it can destroy like cells and that kind of thing. Now, I think that's the other end of the scale. The other gray area is a lot of research on fasting is done on men and not on women. So when I have women who have lost their cycle or mainly issues with ovulation, we absolutely cannot fast. There's no room
Yeah.
for fasting whatsoever. You have to think like it takes around 90,000 calories to make it for a pregnancy, to make a baby. And for women who aren't ovulating, the reason you ovulate is because your body wants you to get pregnant. So if your body's like, hold on a minute, we barely have enough calories to get through the day ourselves, it's not going to let you ovulate. So that's a huge one. Fasting and loss of cycle absolutely do not go together. The other problem is that some people go too extreme, and sometimes people even have, now it's kind of again the gray area, but like using caffeine, people might have like a coffee or something like that during their fast, and like, what coffee can do is going to suppress their appetite. So for women, hardcore fasting is going to be progesterone, can impact ovulation. Again, you might be doing it with your husband and he's grand and you're like, you're not seeing results from it, or you're feeling quite tired from it. In Chinese medicine, fasting is also promoted for liver support and kind of letting the body kind of, I hate using the word detox, but essentially
Yeah.
kind of just letting the body detox and kind of, calm down. But like you said, stop eating at 7 o'clock after dinner and have breakfast next day at 9 a.m. and honor your hunger cues. If you're sitting at your desk and you haven't had a coffee, so your actual hunger cues are kicking in, and you're hungry at 9, 10 o'clock, eat your breakfast. Like, you pushing out a fast just because you read online you have to do 16, 17 hours is not good for your body either. So I think there's a few things where, one, if you're a woman versus a man, it can really make a difference. Number two, if you struggle already with like loss of cycle and, hormonal issues, you're going to deplete your progesterone further and potentially ovulations might not be the right thing. And number three, actually honor your hunger cues. Like, you can't be pushing out too long just because you've read about it. So yeah, I don't know. I rarely give people fasting personally. I know some practitioners
Yeah.
do and they find it good, but I think it's anything that's really intense, I don't think is ideal for the body,
It's not
you know?
necessary is what I think. And like, I think when we're talking quite generally, obviously on a podcast like this, we're trying to keep things as general as possible. Like, fasting can be used for very specific purposes. Like you said, in relation to illnesses, and, like there are certain circumstances that I think that maybe it is appropriate, but it's certainly not something that I'm going to be advising anyone to be doing. And when we think about what a lot of our problems are as women, it can be fertility, not being able to get pregnant, or it is stress. And I would imagine fasting is going to add to the stress in your body and your cortisol levels. It's, the other end of the scale, then perimenopause, again, hormones all over the shop. By fasting, that's not going to help with the stress that your body's already under, I would imagine.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. And then the other problem as well is that I feel like a lot of clients I see are also kind of like under eating a little bit. And you're kind of missing an opportunity. Like, if you're fasting and you're breaking the fast at 12 o'clock and then you might just have like a big lunch and a dinner, like sometimes people are missing the opportunity to get a whole nutrient dense meal in, especially kind of like breakfasty foods. Like people might break the fast at 12 and have like eggs on toast or that kind of thing. And I think like things like your oats and your seeds and like those kind of foods are so important, I think, for health. And people aren't really getting them in other places, that they're kind of missing the opportunity to have something like that kind of breakfasty kind of meal as well.
Yeah, and also for getting enough protein in, like, if we've got a shorter window to eat, it's harder to, a lot of people struggle to eat adequate protein as it is
Yeah.
spread throughout the day. I just think that in general, you're making it harder for yourself. And I think people are afraid to add into their diet. Like
Yeah.
they think that if they want to lose body fat, that they have to eat less. So it's dieting, it's taking away. And it's like, oh, it's easier if I just eat in this smaller window. And it's like, no, like add nuts and seeds to your diet, add in oats, add in lots of vegetables, add in some olive oil, add in. And then what happens when you add in is that the other stuff falls away a little bit, and that you can still have your chocolate or whatever, or your coffee. And maybe you're like, no, stay away from the coffee. You can still have those things, but you don't need them. I just wanted to interrupt the podcast for a moment to talk to you a little bit about Kate Hamilton Health online coaching. So we have two coaching options available. We have our elite coaching and we have our group coaching service. Our elite coaching service is bespoke, individualized coaching, which will help you to finally break free from diet culture with one-to-one anytime support from your coach and with access to a safe, supportive community. This is a higher ticket coaching option, and the coaching is by application only. If you go to my website, katehamiltonhealth.com, you will be able to apply for elite coaching through there, and we will be in touch to organize a call and to get you up and running. In relation to our group coaching starts on the first Monday of every month. When it's full each month, we do close the doors. With the group coaching is about building the habits, body and energy of the healthiest version of yourself and finally make it stick. We include personalized calories and portions, food lists, recipes, meal plan ideas, step goals, home or gym-based workouts, depending on what you want, changed every 8 weeks, mindset work, app access. So that's the Kate Hamilton Health app, which will be your hub for everything. Weekly yoga classes, WhatsApp group community, weekly group Q&A with myself, fun challenges, daily habits form, weekly self check-in, fortnightly check-ins with your coach, a library full of lifestyle guides, a library full of lessons, seminars, and all of this is updated regularly. We have weekly group Zoom calls with myself and the team, regular guest seminars where we get experts on to talk more to you about different topics that we need experts on for. And then we have in-person events twice a year that you will get at a major discount as being a member of the Kate Hamilton Health community. So, as I said, this starts the first Monday of every month. If you go to my website, katehamiltonhealth.com, you will see when the next group coaching intake is starting for you. So we close the doors as soon as that intake is full or the Monday before the group coaching starts. So usually that last Monday of the previous month. So if you head over to katehamiltonhealth.com, all of that information that I've talked through is on the website. You'll be able to book your spot for the next intake there. And I will chat to you all then. You're having them because you want them, and that's the difference, isn't it?
100%. I think people don't realize that whole thing about being hungry. When you are hungry, your blood sugars crash and you're like, you have the salad with you, have kind of whatever the meal prep, and you're like, oh, fuck it, I don't care, I'm getting the chips, or like, let's just go to McDonald's for lunch, or like, I need the chicken fillet roll. Your body's going to crave carbs, or you're going to sit there and eat a cup of tea and 5 biscuits or sugar. And then you eat it and you're like, fuck's sake, why did I eat that? There is nothing that brings me more joy than a cup of tea and a bit of chocolate in my life, right? Theo's in bed, you sit there, turn the TV on. That is good for the soul, right? So I'm not saying don't have that. But there's a big difference in me enjoying that at 7 o'clock in the evening, after a day, and I'm enjoying it, and me eating chocolate at 11 o'clock in the morning because my hands are shaking and I have a headache and I need to get something into me. They're two very, very different things. And this is what we mean here. If you eat proper meals, so let's say, for example, if you got up and you had just a coffee for breakfast because you're not hungry in the morning, and then it's 12 o'clock, you're like, oh, I need something, and you're eating a croissant for breakfast because you just need to get some sugar into you. By you having the better breakfast at 10 o'clock in the morning, you don't have that croissant then. And then you have your lunch comes around because your blood sugars haven't crashed. You have the food that you have with you, whether it's a salad or the sandwich or whatever it is, your leftover dinners, and that you've meal prepped, and, it's something that's a bit maybe more nutrient dense, that your cravings really, really reduce. And then it's a matter of, do I actually want this, or and my blood sugars crash? And a lot of the time when you're satisfied, you actually don't want to have the chocolate every day, or you don't crave those foods as much. It's very much like mindful eating and being like, I'm going to enjoy this and actually eat it. Or sometimes you can actually say no and be like, I actually don't want that. I'm actually satisfied. So that's the whole thing when you hear the kind of thing about people aren't eating enough to lose weight. It's not that you're not eating enough, it's that your blood sugars are crashing. And eventually then as well, if you're in a deficit for too many days, you're going to binge. The last thing your body wants to do is lose weight. So, a lot of people are great. I would call them weekday dieters. Like, you're great Monday to Friday, and then the weekends come around and people kind of binge a little bit more because your body wants to get those calories back in. And it's normally the not so nutrient dense food that people are going to go for then. And that's just human nature. Nothing that, not lack of willpower. It's literally human nature.
Yeah, and I think that if we don't say to ourselves, I can't have the chocolate at 11 a.m., it's when you're hungry at 11 a.m., I'm going to have these oats and seeds, or I'm going to have these scrambled eggs, or whatever it is you're having. And if I still really want it afterwards, I can. But that approach worked really well for me. And then it was like, after I'd have it, I'm like, no, I'm full now. I don't need it.
Yeah. I think, again, I probably work a lot with, actually probably all generations, but I think I was like 90s babies. We're almost like, I think we'd be studying now in a few years between how much birth control we're all put on, and then kind of like the Weight Watchers generation and Slimming World. And we were brought up with America's Next Top Model and like the Hills, and everyone was super skinny, and like skinny was just so trendy. And like, I'm sure all of our moms were in Weight Watchers and Slimming World and all those kind of things. And fats were so demonized. So I think our generation are really scared of eating these foods as well. And like, definitely like our moms are probably like low fat was just so trendy. Cholesterol was a huge thing back in the 80s, and everyone was terrified of fats. And I think that's a big part as well, that it's not just about eating for weight loss, it's eating for health and wellness. Like, healthy fats are just so important for hormone support. And it's one of the main things that I would see, especially fertility issues. I'm always trying to get more fats into people's diets. 0% fat Greek yogurt. Like, it's rare to see someone come to me in the first consultation and they're actually on full fat yogurt, for example, because they're like, oh, the fats are so bad. And every cell in your body is made of fat. Every hormone in your body is made of fat. I think people trying to understand, like, even eating that breakfast, it's for nutrition, it's for your health, not just for weight loss or weight gain or whatever your kind of goals are. It's trying to keep yourself well. It's the only body you're ever going to have,
I'm so glad you said that about healthy fats for hormone health, because this is something that I'm always saying to my clients. Could you go into a little bit more depth as to why healthy fats are so important for hormone health?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing, I don't know if you remember this from junior cert biology, it's literally like drilled into my head, and maybe when I say it, people remember. So your phospholipid bilayer, so like every single cell in our body literally has a membrane around it made of fats. So if you're low in fats, your cells don't work properly. The second thing is our hormones are made partly from cholesterol. So cholesterol is a fat, and cholesterol, the poor thing, gets such bad rep sometimes. Like, it's always cholesterol's bad and this kind of thing. But you have to look at your healthy cholesterol as well. Like, you want that to be optimal so your body can make your hormones. So it's almost like literally the building blocks. If you're trying to build a house and you've no bricks, like, you're not going to get very far. So think about your healthy fats like those building blocks. And it's things like our nuts and our seeds, avocados, olive oil, oily fish, whole eggs, full fat dairy. Like, they're the ones that people should be eating. And I think that's something that people seriously lack when I see clients anyway. Like, a lot of women are avoiding fats because they don't want to put on weight, but then your body's undernourished and you're going to crave fats from other sources. Then you're going to be looking for the chocolate and the pastries and things like that. Your body's going to want it from somewhere else.
It's amazing what our body, yeah, like when we actually learn to trust our bodies, and our bodies will tell us, like, if you're craving something, something's off. Like, it's,
Yeah.
you're depriving it, your body of something that it needs, and it's masked then as a craving for something quick and easy, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Our body's
Yeah.
very smart. Yeah.
Yeah. So another thing that worries me a little bit, which kind of brings it probably more towards the younger generation in general, I suppose, is, this kind of glamorization of like bodybuilding lifestyle, photo shoot prep, people
Yes.
going on quite restrictive calories for the likes of, like, not even a bodybuilding show as much. It's photo shoot culture that, every second young person is doing these days. I have done a photo shoot recently. Now, I did it my own way because I was like, there's no way I'm not risking my health for this. But I think a lot of people aren't aware of how much people are pushing themselves for these shredded photo shoots. And what frightens me the most is how it's being normalized, that how losing your cycle is being normalized. This is hugely worrying for me. I'm like, this is not okay. That, there are people getting extremely unwell because of it. Not only then physically taking a long time to recover, but psychologically and, potentially triggering eating disorders, all for a look, all for a culture that in the gym is being seen as normal now. And I just think it's absolutely crazy. And I don't think young women realize how much they're jeopardizing their chances of conceiving. And I think, as a woman who has 3 kids, and, I know you're a mother as well, and the worry of being able to conceive, and then, for a lot of people, that fertility journey can be very, very difficult, regardless of whether you've like dieted hard in your past. You could, and I just don't understand why anyone would do that to themselves, I suppose. But I think it's not their fault. It's because it's becoming normal in the culture, if that makes sense. I don't even know what my question is here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think there's a certain, I'm sure we can talk about it off air, but like there's certain personal trainers and women come to me and I'm like, I know straight away, I know with their diet who their personal trainer is. And it's women coming to me after a photo shoot who have hypothalamic amenorrhea. And hypothalamic amenorrhea is your brain is switched off ovulation because it's like, we're going to die. We cannot, the last thing on earth we can do is get pregnant. It's literally reserving all its energy to protect you. The other thing to really make clear as well, like you're talking about having a baby, ovulation has 300 other functions besides making a baby. And this narrative of, well, it doesn't matter if you don't have your period, you don't want to get pregnant, what's the big deal? And even GPs will say it, well, you don't want to get pregnant, why does it matter? This is why it matters, because ovulation is so much more than making a baby. It's how our body makes our estrogen and our progesterone. And estrogen is everything from supporting bone health to heart health to muscle building to energy to libido to mood to vaginal dryness. Like people who are on birth control, this is a complete off topic, but I always feel like it's important to say, if you're on birth control and you are really bad vaginal dryness, which is a huge thing I would see with clients, and people think there's something wrong with them, it's from the pill, right? If you've no period and you're struggling with things like that, it's from not having enough estrogen levels. So it's way more than just making a baby. And I think losing your cycle is your body's way of checking in and be like, yeah, it's cool, I'm happy what you're doing this month. It's a sign of health. And at the minute you lose your cycle, your body is screaming at you to do something different. I think it's, us in our 30s looking at girls in their 20s and being like, oh Jesus, what are they doing? Like we probably did stupid things in our 20s as well, not realizing it. Like I know, again, diet culture was so popular when I was in my 20s and we were eating like low calorie soups and stuff. Before I did nutrition, we were just mad about calories. And I think
Yeah,
being
the
skinny was
Special
really
K diet. Did you ever do that one? That was great.
diet. I remember Beyonce had like what was her like cayenne pepper and her maple syrup shots, and like we were obsessed with being skinny. So we did stupid things as well. Like your literal frontal lobe isn't developed. You don't really think about the future. You kind of feel like you're invincible when you're in your 20s. But what you've even mentioned, like the mental repercussions, like the amount of women I see who've come to me and it's so difficult to get over that and regain their cycle. And it's like they feel like they're doing everything right, but it's just gone too extreme. And is it worth it for photos? Like, I don't know. Like it's something to definitely think about if you're going to go into, if you're thinking about doing it. I think chat to someone who's done it ahead of you and see how they feel now about it,
Yeah, definitely. And I just think something needs to be regulated within the fitness
Yeah,
industry.
so I do think the personal trainers need to take responsibility. I think it's literally complete negligence. I think they're risking people's health doing it. I think they should be reported. Like if that was any other industry and you're getting to people that such low body weight that they're losing their cycle, potentially impacting bone health, and you're impacting people's health. Like I think it's very, very dangerous to be doing that. Where like for me, as a naturopath, as a herbalist, as a nutritional therapist, the main thing we were always drilled into is first do no harm. That's the first like rule of, say, naturopathy: first do no harm. So if I ever saw someone and I felt like something I was going to give to them would potentially damage them, I would never give anyone something like that. But imagine being a personal trainer and knowing, okay, you're going to be on 1,000 calories a day and you to do 10,000 steps and you go on the cross trainer now for 3 hours a day and you do 2 weight sessions as well. Like, wow, like, you know what I mean? You're actively knowing you're putting people into severe calorie deficit, and women probably like, I've lost my cycle, and to some people they're like, oh brilliant, that's a good thing now because your body fat's so low. And like it's just complete negligence from my perspective.
Yeah, and I think any women listening that, even if you are in your 30s or 40s or 50s, you've had your kids or whatever, just to keep this in mind. This is the last thing you want to be doing, fucking with your hormones or your health in
Yeah.
this way at any stage of life, for the reasons that you have mentioned there. And I think, most people listening to this podcast are probably 30 plus. I'm generalizing, obviously, but in general. So a lot of people, I'm like, just take responsibility when you're taking in information, when you're taking advice off whatever coach you're working with or whatever professional you're working with, no matter what their qualifications are. If it goes against your health values, don't do it. Like, and yeah, things like losing your cycle is a serious red flag. If you're losing your cycle, like, your body, technically your brain is, like you said, heading towards death. It's like it's protecting you from so you
Mhm.
don't die, and it's taking away your chance of having children because it's afraid you're going to die. That's too far. Bring it back. Like, I know health looks different for everyone, and a healthy lifestyle is different for everyone, but it's just, yeah, like something's got to change there.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So will we talk a little bit around fertility then? Because there'd be people listening as well who, and I think it's wonderful in recent years to hear people be much more open about their fertility journeys. It's something that a lot of people do have to go through, and it can be a really, really difficult time in their lives. And especially if friends are having babies and, people, and then, or if someone gets married and people are like, oh, when are you going to start a family? And they don't, like, I hate when people say these things to people, because like, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes for people. And it can be a real struggle. So in relation to, obviously, you seek medical support, I suppose, or, the correct support to help you on your fertility journey. But what can you be doing yourself?
Like, it's such an area, like I work so close now with fertility. Most my clients most days are with fertility, and it's just an area that it breaks my heart. And I went through it myself. So like, I had a miscarriage before I had Theo. So for me, working with women for the last that was about 2 years ago, so 9 years, helping them get pregnant, and for me to experience that was just so, like, at the time I really struggled to kind of come back from it and come back and be A-OK and give people advice. I just felt like everything I knew was wrong. Like, and I was like, well, obviously my advice doesn't work and things like now. I've come out the other side now and realized, well, actually, it's the opposite, that you could be doing absolutely everything perfectly. And when I say I did everything like to a T, I couldn't have done anything differently if I had known what was going to happen. And sometimes things are just out of your control as well. But I feel like you have to have
Yeah.
that acceptance, being like, I can be doing everything right. And I'm sure there's people risking being like, I'm doing everything, it's not happening. Sometimes we just don't know why things happen, and we just don't know. So I think give yourself that grace and be like, okay, I can do everything I can. And I think once you can tick that box, like, I'm doing everything right, and hopefully then things will fall into place. The first thing I would say is, like, the problem with, say, for example, fertility treatment in this country is they never really investigate why, right? So you go in, we can't get pregnant. Okay, let's start infertility treatment. The end goal is not always just getting someone pregnant, it's having a healthy pregnancy, right? So
Yeah.
if your body's not letting you get pregnant to a certain extent, let's say, for example, you're not ovulating like regularly, that there's always a reason why. And I always talk a lot about blood testing, right? Bloods will tell you why you're not having a regular cycle. And it could be anything from low iron, low B12, high testosterone, thyroid issues, stress, something like hypothalamic amenorrhea, maybe high prolactin. There's always a reason why. So I think the first thing you can do is support your hormones. Let's support ovulation. That means your body, if your body at least is ovulating, and then maybe go for things like IVF or fertility treatment, you're already a step up because your body is in a healthier position than it was. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Then things like making sure in general, even let's say you are ovulating and people are like, okay, where do I start trying the next couple of months? Again, I think bloods are really important to make sure everything is optimal. The word I always use, like, there's within range and then it's optimal ranges on a blood test. Make sure everything's optimal for fertility. Look at your lifestyle, look at your diet, look at your hormones. If you're someone who has horrific PMS, has really heavy periods, or even on the other side, really light periods, like, your period is what that embryo is going to implant into. So I have clients who actually their period is too light and they can't get pregnant, or the other side, their period is too heavy. So our period is our body's way of say, like, think of it like your monthly report card. So if you're having horrific PMS and really heavy periods, that's a sign there's something not right there either. Like, you should get your period and be like, oh geez, I forgot I was getting my period today. And people look at me with 10 heads being like, ah, no. And I'm like, honestly, you should get your period and be like, oh, there's my period. Oh yeah, that's great. And you should not be in bits for 2 weeks and be in bed with a hot water bottle the day you get it and be eating the ibuprofen every 2 or 3 hours. The other really interesting about fertility is, so I've mentioned the hormone progesterone how many times, right? And I said to you, progesterone is the same whether we're 11, we just got our first period, or whether we're 40 in perimenopause. It's the same hormone that impacts our cycle. Progesterone maintains pregnancy for us as well. So if you are someone who has had chronic PMS your whole life, right, and now you're trying to get pregnant, it's not happening, look at progesterone levels. You're someone who's always potentially been low in progesterone. Why would that be any different now when you're trying to get pregnant? So it's the same root cause, like, you know, managing stress, looking at your caffeine intake, looking at your exercise, looking at blood sugar balancing, looking at nutritional deficiencies, looking at your sleep. Like, lifestyle is so important. As a rule of thumb, I kind of say to my clients, when you're trying to get pregnant, act pregnant. So people ask me about, like, long distance running is a huge one. Like, I have clients who are doing, I'm sure you see work like women with that as well. They're doing maybe 40K a week. I'm like, is that still okay? And I'm like, would you do that if you find out you're pregnant tomorrow? And it's a gray area. Some women can really do high intensity workouts and still get pregnant, but some women can't. So I think it's all very individual based. I never like giving kind of like a blanket term, but it's just being really realistic with yourself and be like, okay, am I doing everything I can to support my body during this time? But it's tricky. It is hard, and I think we can also be overwhelmed. I think there's a lot of information online that can kind of stress people out. Like, for most people, you know, go with the flow and enjoy it and see what happens. And then you can do further investigations if you need to. But I do always recommend, I think bloods are always a great step one, just to make sure that you're not low in anything going into pregnancy. Do you know what I mean? If you're going in and your iron is already a little bit low, you're definitely going to end up anemic during pregnancy, for example.
Where do you go to start so if you're someone that's, you're like, look, I feel like I'm doing everything right, and I totally agree with you. Like, you know, I've seen it time and time again where people have serious difficulties getting pregnant or serious difficulties keeping pregnancies, and they're doing
Mhm.
everything right. They're, you know, like every box that's supposed to be ticked is being ticked, and you know, they're not doing the things they're not supposed to do. And then you see people that really neglect their bodies and do whatever they want and have perfectly healthy pregnancies and births, and it does, like, and for someone struggling, that can seem really, really unfair. So if someone who's listening is like, look, I'm ticking all these boxes, you know, I might have a little bit of tidy up to do here and there, but like nothing's happening, and my doctor wants me to go, or to go down the route of or IVF seems to be our only option.
Mhm.
It's really expensive. We need to save for it, whatever, you know, whatever it is. But what the point you made there about, okay, it is the issue that you're not ovulating. Like, how do you find out what the issue is? Like, where do you go to find that out, if you know what I mean?
So So, I mean, that's what we do in our clinic. So I think going to someone like a nutritional therapist who specialize in fertility is always step one. That's how we're trained. And it's like, there has to be a communication between us and the medical professionals. Like, you go into your doctor, your GP, who saw like a child with a cough before you, and you're sitting down and be like, we're trying to get pregnant the last 12 months, not happening. They have no idea what to say to you. Like, they're going to refer you on to someone who could be waiting 8 months after that. So the GP is not qualified, number one, to give nutritional advice or lifestyle advice realistically. Like, they don't do that as part of their training, and that's okay. We shouldn't expect to be getting lifestyle advice or nutritional advice or supplement advice from our doctor, but they should be in the position to say, let's refer you on somewhere else. And that's what's really missing in our country, that kind of referral. Again, I'm always bang on about bloods, but bloods are always step one. They're literally like your individual jigsaw puzzle, right? So that tells us so much about what's going on in your body. And I always recommend getting it done between, say, 2 and 5 of your menstrual cycle. So day one being your first day of your proper bleed, not the day that you're spotting, is day one. And get all of your hormones checked, your iron, your vitamin D, your thyroid. For a lot of people who have unexplained infertility, it can be an autoimmune, right? So if you have someone who has autoimmune thyroid in the background, or could be arthritis, could be celiac disease, like if you have family history of any kind of autoimmune conditions, and maybe you don't have one diagnosed yet, or could be potentially in the background, so we'd always investigate that. That can be done via blood testing as well. But I think working with someone who has experience in like fertility and lifestyle medicine, like we would do in the clinic, and looking at your lifestyle, your diet, gut health is huge as well. And like when I say gut health, people think, no, I poo every day, I'm grand. Your gut health is basically most of your immune system. And part of getting pregnant is that implantation has to take place. So the egg and the sperm meet and they fertilize, and that embryo has to implant. And sometimes if your immune system is on high alert, this kind of the autoimmune aspect, that won't happen. And again, that's going back to gut health. So if someone is struggling with a lot of gut issues and inflammation, or they're cold, they're sick all the time, or they're getting cuts that never heal, or their hair is falling out, like that's a sign that your body is not working optimally. So we need to address those things first. So that's why I think the bloods are brilliant, because it's kind of step one. And then step two, I think, go to someone who can specialize in fertility to support you on kind of your individual journey and make sure you're doing everything right from the nutritional perspective. Like you said, like it makes no sense sometimes. Some people literally didn't even try and they get pregnant straight away. Do you know what I mean? We just don't understand sometimes why that happens. Is it genetics? Some people just have better genes than us. Like a lot of times it's the people who are just so overly relaxed and like, sure, we'll see what happens. Like they get pregnant straight away. Do you know what I mean? So I wish I'd answers for those people, because I know it's really hard to look at friends who weren't even trying and say, oh, what happened the first time, and who weren't
I
even
know, and
taking
it's annoying, isn't it annoying when it's people are like, It's, this is stress now. If you just learn to relax, like,
don't be
and you're like, I can't
yeah,
fucking relax when I'm just trying
no,
to get pregnant and I've been trying for the past 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, that's just unhelpful advice at all,
yeah.
isn't it? To be like, if you're more
So
relaxed, it'll happen. And be like, all
yeah.
right, thanks. That's
We're like,
great.
we go away for the weekend and get drunk and have sex. It will happen then. Like, it's just, and people are like, yeah, we tried that. Like, it's like so condescending to
Yeah.
say to someone trying to get pregnant for two
Yeah.
years. Like, so there's definitely, there's always a reason. Sometimes it can be really complex. Like, even there can be structural things. So a lot of time women might actually have like a blocked fallopian tube. And you can have a thing called a hycosidome, where they literally like will flush the fallopian tube. Endometriosis is huge in Ireland as well. Like, I feel like we could do a whole podcast on that. And it takes 9 years for women to be diagnosed with endometriosis. And like you were saying earlier about your mom being like, you're grand. Like, it's such Irish mammy. It's just their generation. So how many women our generation who probably have endo, have just had horrific periods their whole life and been told, you're grand, take some Constance, take some ibuprofen, get the hot water bottle out. And they actually might have
Yeah.
issues getting pregnant because it's damage or tissue growing in the wrong place or inflammation in the uterus, and that might have to be addressed as well.
And so this is all something that you do within your clinics, as in,
Yeah.
that you can very much be step one for women to start looking at getting that blood work, putting the practices
Yeah.
in place that need to get in place
Yeah.
to start moving forward in their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do blood tests now in my clinic for this reason, because I feel like sometimes you go to the doctors and it's the mentality of like, sure, you'd be great. You don't need hormones checked. It's a little bit gaslighty as well. Like, this, I've been in clinic nearly 11 years, and it's only the last couple of months I've got blood testing done now in our clinic twice a month, because I just get so frustrated with women going to the doctor and booking in and going on day 2 to 5, and they come out and half things aren't checked. So the doctor's like, you don't need them. And I'm like, yes, you do need them. And again, it's just lack of education that like they don't understand you need that full picture. If someone doesn't have a period, they might go, you don't have PCOS. But I'm like, you don't have PCOS. What do you have? It's like, okay, it's not that, but what is it? And there's always something. So I think we could do everything like that in the clinic, that people can come, book in once, and we can definitely help you anyway.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing resource
Yeah.
to have, and the fact that you are in Ireland as well. Like, because I talk to different people all over the world with different amazing services, and I'm like, why are you not in Ireland? So this is amazing that that you're in Dublin.
Online as well. Yes.
You're online as well, so there's loads of options. You don't have to be in Ireland to work with you as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because we do come from that generation, or like our parents' generation, whereas like the GP knows everything. Like, the GP is God.
Yeah.
It's like, if
My
the
dad
GP
is on medication and he genuinely doesn't know why he's on it. He's on it because the doctor told him to. And I'm like, Dad,
Yeah.
like, honestly. And he's like, the doctor said. And that's okay. It's just our generation asks more questions now. We want to get, I think so anyway, the root of the problem and what's going on. It's just, hopefully it will change by the time, even our kids now are,
And that's it. And like, I'm not anti-GP at all. Like, I think GP, like, the doctors are amazing, and like, they obviously are quite important, extremely important. But I think when it comes to GPs, you'll get really thorough ones, and then you'll get other ones that are just will stick to their old ways. And it very much depends on the doctor, as it does with any profession, I suppose. That
I always say, like, I always want to make it so clear. I'm so, like, they are so well trained. They're in that job because they want to help people, but just sometimes it's out of their scope. And it's a good GP will know when it's out of scope and to refer on. You know what I mean? Or a lot of the younger GPs now, like, with all due respect, sometimes old generation, they just don't know about hormones and things like that. So it's a little bit like, I know you'll be fine. Or like I've had women come to me and the doctor said, like, you don't look like you're in perimenopause. We don't need to check bloods. You don't look like you're in perimenopause. Like, what does that look like? It's very just like, it's just about them knowing when it's out of their, like, that out of their scope and when to refer on, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Before we finish up, I would just love to ask you a little bit about your traditional practices and your I was going to say your herbalism. I don't know if herbalism, your herbalist practices.
Yeah.
Herbalism, is that a word?
Herbalism, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what place does this play in people's lives, and tell me more. I don't even know what to ask here. I'm interested
in it. So first of all, like, I think in herbal medicine, nature is giving us everything that we need, and we've just lost that art of using herbs as medicine. They're in a lot of drugs. Like, for example, aspirin is a herb called Salix alba, which is like a natural pain reliever. So a lot of drugs we have are actually extracts of herbs to begin with, right? So I've kind of have two mindsets on how herbs work. because I was brought up with herbal medicine, is very much like the real traditional Chinese medicine. So my mum be like, let me see your tongue, right? I know it sounds mental, and my clients think I'm half mad before they meet me. I'll get them send me a picture of their tongue, and your tongue tells me so much about what's going on inside your body from a Chinese medicine perspective. Some people have really swollen tongues with like little indents, which is like your teeth are resting on your tongue and your tongue swollen in your mouth. That'll be like bloating and constipation and digestive issues. Some people's tongue is really, really dry. Some people have a purple tongue, which is like usually see like heavy periods and high blood pressure and things like that. Some people have white. It's literally like really, really cold. It'd be like things like underactive thyroid. So it's quite interesting. Now we take it all with a pinch of salt. I'm not looking at your tongue and be like, you have an underactive thyroid, right? But the way our clinic then works, I'll show you on the call. We do tinctures that look like that. Okay. So in our clinic, we stock 300 different types of herbs, and they're all for different things. And when we see clients, we make up a personalized herbal tonic. So like in one tonic, let's say my tonic, for example, I have something for like energy, for low iron, for stress, for dry skin, for progesterone production, for bloating, all in my tonic. So I can literally put you in a tonic, you in a bottle. So they're brilliant for hormones. Imagine something for sore boobs and heavy periods and energy and constipation and migraines all in one tonic. So the beauty of it is they're literally like, I'll probably never make that tonic up twice. And we look at the tongue as well. So it's very, very personalized. So that's kind of real Chinese medicine. And then when I went back and studied herbalism to become a herbalist, I knew all the kind of like, you know, echinacea for feeling sick, thyme for feeling sick, the kind of like the basics that I was brought up with herbal medicine. But what I never learned was the science behind it. So we had to do chemistry models or modules during my training. And it's fascinating actually understanding how it actually works in the body. So we have a really good herb called chasteberry. Have you heard of chasteberry before? Or Agnes castus? No,
No.
it's a herb that we use for progesterone, right? So it's brilliant for supporting ovulation. I often give our clients a hypothalamic amenorrhea. It basically helps support the brain, the pituitary gland, to kind of help the ovaries ovulate. And I always knew that was great for hormones, but understanding how it works from a science perspective is we have neurotransmitter in the brain called dopamine. Dopamine's like your happy hormone, right? And what happens is chasteberry comes into the brain and it binds to all these little dopamine receptors. So our body thinks we have more of this kind of happy hormone, and then that will support progesterone and ovulation. So even if you're up the walls and your dopamine levels are going to be lower if you're stressed, you can take a herb like chasteberry and it kind of like almost like tricks your body into thinking that you have more happy hormones. So it's fascinating. Then when I went back and studied, being like, oh my God, there's so much science in herbal medicine. But again, it's just a lost art. Like honestly, there's herbs for absolutely every possible thing you could imagine there's a herb for. They're unbelievable. I feel like we're, you know, it's such a it's a lovely extra thing that I can give to my clients for, especially with chronic illnesses like endometriosis. Herb medicine can be brilliant because so many people have different symptoms that we can literally specify for them exactly, basically. So yeah, that's it in kind of a
That's so
nutshell.
interesting
Yeah.
and so refreshing compared to like the general like supplementation, like the amount of questions I get about supplements. And I'm like, oh my God, it so depends. It depends on the person. It depends on what's going on with you, that you can actually like, yeah, that I can just imagine. I just imagine you there with your cauldron,
Yeah,
putting
a big
together a little potion for
little witch.
everyone.
This is me, like, you know, back in the day, I would be a witch. I'd be burned at the stake. Being kind of careful. But it's, and my brain thing with this, I'm so like, I love the science side of things. So it kind of doesn't make sense, but also makes so much sense to me when we're looking at herbal medicine. And you're talking a lot about like your chi. So your chi is like your vital force, your get up and go, your energy, your motivation. And like my questions in my consultation, one of the questions is, do you feel better after exercise? So, you know, you think about this now with your own clients. Some people say no, not everyone says yes. And some people, we call it things like chi deficiency. Your chi deficiency is your energy, your get up and go, your vital force. It helps you repair when you're sick. Like, you know, if you're cold, the last thing you should be doing is going out for a walk or going to the gym. If you're lying on the couch dying, you have to let your chi nourish you. So it's really, really interesting. Some people come to me with complete burnout. They're trying to get up and go to the gym. They're trying to meal prep. They're trying to do all these things and they're completely burnt out. And I'm like, you're actually chi deficient. And we have lovely herbs called chi tonics, which are just unbelievable. Like they're amazing for people with kind of like that real burnout from chronic stress. And it just helps them understand from a Chinese medicine perspective, you're not crazy, you're chi deficient, you're burnt out. And it just gives people like, okay, it's just looking at things from a completely different perspective, basically.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you work with people on fertility, on
Yeah.
PCOS, endometriosis, burnout. Do you
Yeah.
work with on the either end of the spectrum as well? Like, do you work with teenagers? Do you work with women who are suffering with like perimenopause symptoms as well?
Yeah, definitely. So my mum, we actually own our clinic now together, and my mom is in clinic 30 years. 30 years. She's a herbalist, which is absolutely insane. Like I was 4 when she left her job as a nurse and became opened her clinic. Like imagine that was 1994. People were probably like, Roisin has gone mental. Like, you know what I mean? Leaving a full time 4 kids at home. But my mom is, because she was a children's nurse, so she sees kids, which is amazing. and she is absolutely unbelievable. Like menopause, I like it as well, but I feel like sometimes, like my mom is 65, so I feel like women relate more to people who have gone
Yeah.
through it and are like, oh my God, the kids, the teenagers, so I think like a lot of time I will refer people on to my mum's clinic. She's amazing for real like chronic conditions as well, like, you know, people with fibromyalgia and like chronic autoimmune conditions. And I would see that as well, but just because she's in clinic for so long, like she's, you know, and I love the fertility side of things. Like she's great with kind of like she's fertility and everything else, but she's absolutely brilliant with especially kids and menopause.
Wow, that's amazing. I could literally, I think I
I
could
know we
keep
could
talking
chat
to
all
you.
day.
I could. I have so many more things I could ask you, but I'm going to stop you there because I can't take over your whole day. But thank you so much for coming on. And like, this has just been so, so valuable, like everything you've shared today. And I know that there's been so many people listening now that will want to reach out to you, whether it be for themselves, whether it's for their mothers, for their daughters, for their friends. Where is the best place for them to find you?
Yeah. So my website's AOK Nutrition, and my Instagram's AOK Nutrition. Probably email booking is probably better. Sometimes DMs I just can't keep on top of. So maybe email me is probably best, or contact the clinic basically. Yeah.
Perfect. So if they Google AOK Nutrition, your website will come up and they'll be able to kind of make contact through email to contact the clinic that way.
Yeah.
Thank you
we can
so
do
much.
a part 2 another time, definitely. Because I feel like
Definitely part 2 because like I think we need to talk about PCOS. We need to talk about endometriosis. We need to talk more about your cauldron of potions as well.
Yeah.
You should talk more about the herbs. So definitely part 2 coming somewhere down the line. But thank you so much, Aisling.
Thank you for having me. It was great chat.
I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And I would just ask for one thing from you. If at all possible, could you make sure that you subscribe to the podcast? It really does make such a difference. If there's a particular episode that you've enjoyed, please do share it in your WhatsApp groups, share it on your stories, tag myself and the guest in your stories. All of these things really do help to grow the podcast. And obviously, if there's anything you'd like to reflect on, please do leave a comment. It would mean the world to me, and I will see you on the next one.